Good morning, everyone, and welcome to 280 Group's latest leadership webinar series. My name is Roger Snyder, and today you are attending 8 trends to track for product success in 2021. Thank you for joining us this morning, and I especially want to thank Denise Hemke for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Denise.
My pleasure, Roger. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Denise joins us from Workday, where she is the VP of Product Management and Strategy Analytics. Now it says Oakland, California, but you're not actually in Oakland, are you?
No, I mean, we're in this virtual working world these days, so I took it as an opportunity to go run and spend a couple of months closer to family in Tampa, Florida.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Well, I am in Scotts Valley, my home. Some of you would recognize my background from previous webinars, but fortunately, a couple of my daughters will be flying in to visit us for the holidays, and we will take all the right COVID precautions, but we're excited to have our daughters coming home. So it's great that you're able to get out there and spend time with family.
Yeah, it's been great. And quarantining at the beach wasn't too bad either.
I bet not, absolutely. All right, well, let's move into today, but we have a couple of admin things before we get going. First of all, we operate a great community on LinkedIn that I would love for all of you to join. It's a great place where not only do we share the latest in our content and activities from 280 Group, but it's also a place where we are offering a conversation area for folks to be able to share their own tips with each other. So I'm going to paste that link. I clicked the link by accident, so I'm going to try to get in here and not click the link this time, but send the link to you in our chat box so that you can join the community and join the conversation, be able to support each other in your growth as product managers and product professionals of various stripes. Now, we often get a number of questions during the webinar, and we encourage that. We really want you to be engaged with us, so please find the questions box on GoToWebinar and start typing your questions in right now so that we are able to answer your questions during the end of the webinar. So accumulate questions now, write them down and go ahead and put them in there. And then at the end of the webinar, we will be able to answer as many questions as we can, but we always like to save some time where we can interact with our audience. 2 of the most popular questions that we receive are, can you watch this webinar later? And the answer is absolutely. So after the webinar is over, we will send all of our attendees an email with a follow-up that includes a link to the recording of this webinar so you can go back and watch it. Now, the other question we often get is, well, can I get a copy of the slides? And the answer to that is no, because there are copyrighted materials in the slides that we're not at liberty to share. But you can watch the webinar again and grab the information that is most important to you. So look forward to you being able to follow up with us. Now I'm going to go into a little bit about 280 Group. For those of you who are not familiar with 280 Group, we are all about product management and the product profession for product management, product marketing, product owners. And our mission really is to empower these product professionals with the knowledge and tools to build products that matter. And these are products that matter to you, to your company, as well as to your customers, right? Of course, it's most important that they matter to your customers so that your customers are thrilled and excited to be using your products. But we really like this phrase, products that matter, because it's about what matters to all the various audiences that you're working with. And we do this by providing a number of different services. We have the optimal product process, which helps product teams become more effective in the way they conduct product management. We offer a number of services like consulting and contracting. And of course, training is at the center of what we do. We believe strongly in advancing the profession of product management. And that comes through being able to provide you with excellent training. And we partner with AIPMM so that you can become a certified product manager or gain other certifications like digital product management as well. To learn more, go to 280group.com, because I don't want to bore you with too much of a sales pitch. Today, we're in the Product Management Leadership Series, and today we're talking about implications of change. And that's, 2020, my goodness, what a year. I can't believe what we've been through this year. And there's going to be more coming, right? So what we want to do is look at the trends, both in terms of product management as well as technology, that allow you or give you some ideas to improve your product management processes, as well as be able to improve your products themselves. So let's dive a little further in. So Denise, here's a little bit about our audience today. We've got the majority of folks are either product managers or product marketing managers, but we've got quite a good slice. Over 20% of folks are product leaders as well. So I think there's going to be lots of good information that will work for both individual contributors as well as for product management leaders.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something for everyone in what we've got today.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're here. Now, we are advancing the way we do this webinar. The last 2 years, we've kind of done it in January, and this year we thought, well, let's get a head start and do this in December. So looking back at what we did present in January about 2020, first off, I'll say no, we did not predict the pandemic. So you weren't able to get that prediction here, unfortunately. But we did talk about several aspects of trends in product management that were definitely valuable this year in terms of being able to get better actionable customer insights and to conduct more experiments. And we're going to double down on a couple of these. Denise is going to talk about more trends in product management that are rooted in these, but also extend these ideas for new ideas for you to think about in 2021. And of course, never forget the fundamentals. You always need to be thinking about your fundamental product management skills to be able to understand your customers, build a solid business case, and take products to market. Another aspect of this is the trends that we saw in technology. And where'd my mouse go? Because all of a sudden I'm lost it. Here we go. For some reason, PowerPoint now is slowed down. You can see me, right, Denise?
I can see you. It must be
Okay.
the webinar gods. They're much like the demo gods, right? Every product manager prays to them.
That's very true. Yes. But all of a sudden, my PowerPoint appears to be crashed.
Uh-oh.
All right. PowerPoint is simply not responding. All right, well, let's see if I can get PowerPoint to go away. And I apologize to our audience for this. PowerPoint is restarting. Hang on a second. And you can see a background. There we go. All right. Let's get back into presentation mode. I think I'll actually go down to the slide that we were on. Let me know, Denise, that you're able.
Yeah, we're working.
Seeing it good?
Seeing it well.
Awesome. Okay, so here we are. We also talked in January about various innovation and technology trends. Again, we're going to advance on a few of these because they are still extremely important in 2021. One of the trends that I did find humorous, though, that I did talk about in January was about toilet paper. So it was about a toilet paper delivery robot of all things, believe it or not. But that was one of the trends that I predicted, and I did not know I was predicting something that would become such an important part of everyday conversation. Where were you going to get your next roll of toilet paper? So there you have it.
Or
You
was
heard it
that
here.
in March or April?
Right? Right? Exactly. Fortunately, it was a prototype from Charmin, so it was not yet available. All right, well, I'm going to turn it now over to you, Denise, to talk to us about these 4 trends in product management.
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, I'll get started. So we're going to first talk about the first trend on the next slide, which is becoming even more customer centric.
Okay.
And can you move ahead one?
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. All right. So customer centricity, some of you may be asking, what is that really about in terms of product management? And it really is an approach to putting the customer first, truly understanding their problem before you dive into how to solve it. And building a product that not just meets their needs, right, but is a product that really is easy for them to use. And then finally, you want to really create a connection between your product and your end users. So I'll say at Workday, for instance, we strive to build products that are easy to adopt and easy to love, we say. And that love piece really means starting with putting your customer at the center. But why would we do this? Other than happy customers, which we all aspire to? Well, according to this recent Deloitte study, customer-centric companies are 60% more profitable than their peers. That's pretty incredible. And I think when you see that statistic, you say, absolutely, I should be all in on this. So how do we get there? It really starts with you, right, as a product manager. When you were hired, right, you were hired for your domain or your technical expertise. And during that interview process, people were trying to tease out, are they good at building customer empathy? Do they understand their customer? They're looking at that track record of your experiences to say, do they have products that really resonated? They build products that really resonated with their user base. And ultimately, I think what we're looking for a lot of times we're trying to tease this out about an individual is this key skill of, can they listen, and then can they synthesize what they hear to truly understand the customer pain, the customer challenge. So how do you go about listening, right? Because that's one thing that many people ask, especially earlier on in their career. And it's really about opening up all of these different channels. So not just one channel, right? That's not good enough. You really need to open up all of these different channels. And that can range from customer advisory boards to research, leveraging methodologies like jobs to be done. It can also be the more digital side of things, looking at adoption KPIs and tracking your customers' digital exhaust really across all of the channels that they're exposed to with your company. So it's a combination really of this qualitative and this quantitative information together that really allows you to fully understand your customer.
Right. I love that
So,
term.
oh, sorry, go
I love that term, exhaust.
ahead. I think we're leaving it all over the internet, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So we should capitalize that on product managers and really learn from those that evidence that's left behind.
Right.
So you might say, hey, Denise, like this is great, right? But it's not really new. And I think what is new is that we see the trends, using AI for even more personalization. And really in the B2B space, which is where I come from, this is becoming more important, right? We've said this for many years, the consumerization of IT, but people have these great products, they have these great products on their phone that they use every day, and they are demanding now at work to have these great personalized experiences. They want the same machine learning and intelligence that tailors the application to them, that they use in their personal life. They want that at work. So the next area is kind of on that side of physical evidence, right? The more tactile things, and around trust and safety. And this is especially true during the pandemic. And this can range from this upper left-hand photo of the touchless ordering that you see now at restaurants, maybe around the nation or maybe around the globe, I'm not sure. To really, products that are very tactile, right? Like the sticker that's indicating, hey, this room has been cleaned, right? You're safe here.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and then I would say the other trend we're seeing is these really immersive experiences. This Astrobot game, this picture kind of towards the bottom, it's a VR game that even my 4-year-old nephew had mastered. I couldn't believe it. I definitely was not nearly as successful in putting it on. But we're spending so much time at home that these enhanced experiences about how to shop, better and make sure you're selecting that right couch or that right piece of furniture that you're investing in, or getting your great workout, right? They've made our lives better before. They made our lives easier in some ways, but they've truly become essential now. And so it's really knowing what is essential for the customer and really tailoring the application so that it feels built for them.
Right.
So yeah, Roger, did you want to add something on this piece?
All of these things that, COVID-19 has done something horrible to our society for sure, but one of the silver linings has been the fact that it has put even more emphasis on how important all of these trends are that you've been talking about, because our customers' needs shifted a lot this year, right? And if you weren't tapped in and able to measure those changes, it made it much harder to be able to respond. And I think that's what you're talking about a little bit in that upper right there, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, I think those listening channels, that feedback loop has never been more important, now, because there's so much change happening and things are pivoting so quickly. And so, you really want to start listening before you start crafting that first design, before somebody starts writing that first line of code, right? And you need to keep that listening channel ongoing.
Mhm.
So that brings us maybe to the next trend.
Yep.
I mentioned that term that you liked, digital exhaust, right? And
Mhm.
really looking at our customers' adoption and usage data. And so, this is yet another critical trend that continues to go on. And I tell this story of back in 2019, my husband and my daughter, who was then, 2 at the time, we went to Maine for vacation. And my husband likes to go rock climbing. And so we got him a guide who was an expert at this, and I dropped the 2 of them off because I think 2 was probably a little young for rock climbing. And so, my daughter and I kind of went to the beach, and I actually took the picture on the left of where they were climbing, kind of at a distance. And then he sent me the photo on the right so that I could kind of get a close-up experience, of what he was going through. Maybe just in
Mm.
case it was the last time I could. Uh, this is where I was. But what he was telling me, what was really unique about climbing in Acadia National Park in Maine, is that you actually have to rappel down and you climb up, right? Which is pretty different than
Right.
traditional rock climbing, where I say you kind of look up at your enemy, right,
Mhm.
and kind of climb upwards. And so the guy says to him, "Hey, after you finish tying in, you just lean over the edge and you just let yourself go." Right? And, this is a rock that people climb daily. He's wearing safety gear that can hold the weight of a vehicle.
Right.
He's got a guide who's out there every day. And this is a rock. So it probably doesn't change that often, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but yet my husband looked at him and said, "You know what? I am not comfortable doing this. There has to be a better way." Right? He did not want to lean over the edge and just blindly go over, even though all those things were true. But I think it's interesting when I compare and contrast that to product management, because I feel like we blindly lean over the edge a lot. I talk to many product managers, as I'm sure you do, Roger, right?
Yep.
Who, launch new products or build costly features, and they're not tracking any usage data in some cases. So they have no visibility to who's using their product, how they're using their product, if they're satisfied with their experience. And so that blind going over the edge is something that we all need to correct to make sure that our products really resonate.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
a
really,
really good
yeah,
point. I mean, I remember because I've been in this career for a very long time. We did do a lot of this blind, and it's amazing. Just in the last 5 years, even going back a little bit longer, 7 years, that we now have so much more opportunity to not have to just lean back and let go. There is
hmm,
so much more available to us. So I think you wanted to get a sense of where is our audience on this, right? So
yeah.
let's conduct a poll and find out how much are they doing this. So I'm going to launch the poll and then you can kind of explain the choices here.
Yeah, so we really just want to get a sense of, are you measuring adoption and customer satisfaction today? So the first one could be your NPS or customer sat survey. The next one is really around adoption KPIs. So what are those key metrics, things like monthly active users, MAU, you often hear that referred to, that you're using to look at, how frequently are people going in and actually using your product? Or those more granular metrics like feature adoption KPIs, right? Something
Mhm.
very specific. And then are you doing some combination of the above or none of the above?
Right. So when you're talking about the feature adoption metrics, are you talking about things like a user journey, or are you talking about moments in time, or maybe both?
Yeah, I think they can be both, but the analogy I often give to my team to explain kind of the difference between what you see at the adoption at a higher level and something at the lower level. So I'm in analytics, right? People want to look at data, and then sometimes they want to sort that data, right? The way it came out, maybe the natural order isn't the way you want to see it. Maybe you want it, sorted descending, for example. Well,
Mhm.
as a product manager, I want to know how often somebody's interacting with that sort dialogue, right? But that
Huh?
doesn't really tell me if they're adopting the product or getting value out of the product. But I need to know all the way down at that granular feature level, is this thing useful, right? Because it tells
Right.
me some bigger picture items like, hey, am I sorting by default in the best way possible?
Ah, okay. That's a good point, actually. So it can sometimes be that you want people to be using a feature a lot, but other times the fact that they're using features a lot just means that you didn't give them the good default choice. So that's an
Absolutely.
interesting poll challenge, right? All
Yeah.
right. Well, let me close the poll and let's see what folks said here. So I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. And hopefully folks are seeing that, but let me share the results with you, Denise. So 13% of our audience said that they are measuring NPS or CSAT, 12% that they're using some sort of adoption KPIs, only 7% said feature adoption metrics, but 48% said some combination of the above. So nearly half of our audience is doing some sort of work in this area, which is fantastic. But there's still 20% in that last category of they aren't looking at any of these things quite yet. So I think that's important that for those folks, we really are encouraging them to figure things out and how do they start being able to get some of that exhaust, get some of that insight and be less blind, right?
Yeah, and I think later, Roger, you'll talk about even for non-digital products, how you can create that digital connection. And so that might be some of these people in the 20%.
Right.
But it is great to see that many of you are leaned into a lot of these different avenues. And I would just encourage you to explore it further, because I'm going to walk through how combining these two things together, right? Looking at NPS as well as usage in kind of a quadrant view will tell you really what's going on with your customers and can also tell you where to dig in.
Right.
So I'll start with the good news part, right? I've got an employee who always says, you want to hear the good news or the bad news first? So let's start with the good news. So the good news, we'll start with the upper right quadrant. High NPS, high usage. Basically, these are your happy customers, right? And if we all have a North Star product-led growth, which Roger, I know you're going to talk about in a little bit, these are your prime candidates to sell into, right? So I like to say, don't mess this one up. Now, if we look though at the top left quadrant, then this is where a human like a customer success manager or the application, which is where I always aspire to be, needs to encourage adoption, right? And the positive from the human side is somebody like a customer success manager can have a really open-ended conversation with the customer to say, hey, what are these adoption barriers? Why aren't you using the product? However, I will say the cons are it's less scalable, right? Because it's higher cost. And sometimes it's hard to reach that true end user, right? Especially in B2B, where you might talk to an administrator, but you may not talk to the end person using your product.
Good point.
And so we compare and contrast that to an application approach, right? How the application can encourage you, right, to use the product. You can think about product walkthroughs to increase learnability. You can think about nudges to re-engage the user, right? You can really, those negatives that I talked about leveraging a CSM can be overcome by really putting the machine to work because it can reach that true end user. But I will say the one word of caution I'll give you, if this isn't in your DNA, is it can have upfront costs, right? And that can range from engaging with legal to security or application changes, maybe needing hardware to build out this kind of listening channel. But I'll tell you, dividends over time, dividends.
Absolutely.
So now let's look at those lower right quadrants, right? These are the bad news. These are your unhappy customers. And you need to understand why as a product manager. This is your job, right? And you want to do it fast.
Absolutely.
So I like to say that lower left quadrant, right? These are the people with one foot out the door. So if you're going to lose them, let's not lose them in vain, right? Let's use this as an opportunity to learn why your product did not meet their needs. And on the right-hand side, right, these people, unfortunately, they're using your product because they're trapped, right? There isn't an alternative. They have to use it because there's not something else out there. But as market barriers continue to lower, and we see a lot of this happening, obviously, with public cloud environments, and you might have new entrants to your market, these people will shift left if you don't get ahead of it. So, and I'll say in the meantime, they might use your product, but probably begrudgingly, and as little as possible. So you want to understand them, but you got a little more time to do it, but don't get complacent.
Right, absolutely.
So let's move on to the people side. As a people leader and as a product management leader, I can't just talk about customers. I'm also looking at trends across our organization and our role. So if you say, is that you dressed up as Luigi with your daughter on the upper left? The answer is yes, you are right.
That's awesome.
Mustache and all. So, I think many people went through these motions, right? Early in the pandemic, we did a costume party, a part of an all hands. And while these fun events are fun and their fun is still important, and we've learned a lot, I think, over the past year about how to pivot a team. to a completely virtual world. And so, much of what I'm going to go through is applicable to any org, but some of this is, heightened just by the nature of the product manager's job, how high touch our job is.
Right.
So if we start on the left-hand side, it was really all about optimizing what we do every day, right? Taking our job and shifting it virtually, taking what we did in the office and doing it in that virtual world. But these categories on the right-hand side, I think these were the things that we didn't fully appreciate when we started the pandemic, and they have gotten more and more important over time, just as the duration, has become longer. So I think, yeah, this has become our new normal. And so, focusing on employee health and well-being is really crucial. So if you look at something like in the listening channels, many companies were already doing employee engagement surveys, but the frequency was pretty low, right? When I talked to a lot of my peers, it's, we do it maybe annually. And so that cycle has shortened so that you can create this ongoing listening channel, because you just can't bump into somebody and get ad hoc feedback over coffee, right? You've lost those opportunities. So you need that data, that leading indicator, so that as a leader, you can dive in. And so my pro tip here as a leader is that make sure when you action that feedback, that you clearly tie for your organization. Here's the feedback that I received on some survey. I'll say at Workday, we call it our best place to work survey, with the action that you're taking, because that builds trust and transparency in your organization, so that people will actually lean in and give you more feedback because they know their feedback matters, right? You're going to do something about it.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah. And the other area I want to talk about is reducing meeting workloads. And this is hard, right? I like to say, we all know we should take our vitamins every day and work out, right? It's good for us. But who did that today? Did you do that, Roger?
I didn't work out today because I had too many meetings this morning, but I did yesterday morning.
Well,
So
good for you. I did neither of those things today. And so my point is really that, like, we often have to be, nudged or reminded, even for the things that we know are good for us. And so I'll maybe share a quick story that there's a people analytics team embedded in our HR team, not to be confused with the product that I ship, people analytics, but it's a team that's responsible for giving insights across the organization. And they used in another product I'm responsible for, Prism Analytics, to marry Zoom data with employee sentiment data. And what they found was that people who said, I'm in, just the right amount of meetings, to the people who said I'm in too many meetings or way too many meetings, the difference at all levels in the organization. So those of you that are PMs, to those of you, that are leading product management teams, the difference was about 2 to 3 hours, right? So if we could move the needle in just 2 to 3 hours, your sentiment increased, right? You were much happier at work. And so my pro tip here is obviously ruthlessly manage your calendar, block out time for meetings. I color code them, and I color code and block my work time, so it's protected, it is guarded against. Because if you don't manage your calendar, and like I said, this is true for every level in the organization, nobody will.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. You got to lead, right? And lead by example. It's a great point. And I love that tipping point being just 2 to 3 hours, just 2 to 3 hours less. And that really makes a big difference. That was a great insight. So thanks for sharing.
Well, and relevant to PM, right? Because, I'll tell you, as compared to our peers in engineering, we're on about double the amount of meetings.
That's right.
As reported by the data that I have just recently looked at.
There you go.
So I'll kind of wrap it up with this last one, which is about diversity and product management. And obviously diversity has been a really big focus this year. And I'll say, really beyond diversity, equality. Well, the Boston Consulting Group did a study of about 1,700 companies, and they found that high diversity organizations had about 19% higher revenue than their peers. So again, another revenue-based reason as to, why we should lean into what we know is good already. And I'll add to it that in PM, and you and I talked about this, Roger, that diverse teams bring more perspectives, right? They solve problems in these different ways. They bring these different viewpoints. And I think that, it's through our own diversity that we can really understand our users better.
Absolutely. Yeah. So earlier this year, we had a guest blog post from Ngozi who was able to help me understand better that having multiple people on your team with different cultures brings whole new perspectives to problems, and whole new perspectives of understanding these problems help you find new solutions to better serve your customers. It was a great insight.
Yeah, and I'll say just this one example, right? And this is focused on females, and obviously diversity is on a lot of different axes. But in
Yes.
4 months, we gave back a decade of job gains, right? So that just tells you how fragile, the progress that we've made is. So we've really got to be intentional about diversity. And
Yeah.
so I'll just say I feel really lucky to be at Workday, where my Chief Diversity Officer, Karen Taylor, is truly a visionary in this space. And she has a patented methodology that goes beyond just diverse representation. It's about inclusion, belonging, equity. So inclusion really being that healthy environment where everybody's valued and respected, and belonging, everybody feels safe. They feel like they're part of the community. And equity, and I think this is a really key one and something that we're hearing, more and more, is everybody feels like they have the opportunity to advance and succeed.
No, it's fantastic. So I've just pasted the link into the chat box so you can learn more about Vibe, which I think is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'll let you
Yeah.
know more about it.
Yeah, so I think at the end our goal is to stop the leaky bucket, right? Don't bring diverse talent in and have them leave. And so part of that methodology is really looking at the intersectionality, the segments of employees, to see what kind of experiences they're having, to see where their experiences differ, right? So, and it goes beyond though just male female comparisons, which is I think what we've seen pretty typically, but these really specific segments. So what is the experience of a Black woman versus a white woman versus maybe a white male or an Asian male? How do they all differ? And they shouldn't differ widely, because otherwise we're not really achieving those goals of belonging, inclusion, and equity.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, so I bring this up in the context of PM maybe for two reasons, right? The first one being, again, going back to, we want diverse organizations so that we can solve these broad problems and that we can truly know and understand our users better. But I think the second one is really that we interact with so many people across the organization. We
Mm,
interact with so many people across different functions, and that's pretty unique in PM. And
right.
so it's also about the impact that we have on others, right? Each of us can impact other people's vibe. They can impact their experience.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So having a diverse product management team allows you to work with a more diverse entire company, right?
or
Yeah.
or you can help keep diverse talent at the company
Mhm.
too, right? By making sure that they feel included just in the way that you engage with them.
Right, definitely. Great. Well, these have all been great tips. Thank you so much for sharing them, Denise. And they did build on some ideas, but you extended the universe of ideas for us for 2021. So I really appreciate that. So I'm going to take over now and talk a little bit about innovation and technology trends. We've got these 4 trends that we want to talk to you about. And the first one is product-led growth. For those of you who are not familiar with product-led growth, give me just a moment to talk about, well, where are we starting from, right? The traditional way of looking at the way we acquire new customers is to think about your sales funnel, right? And this is the traditional sales funnel where there's there's a universe of people out there who may not even be aware of your product, and they need to be brought to that level of awareness. Then for those that express interest, they will then hopefully come and consider your product. Then they have an actual intent to purchase and they go ahead and purchase. And there's fewer people at the bottom of this funnel. It's called a funnel because there's going to be fewer and fewer people as they go through it, right? And this is this traditional sales funnel, and we kind of, tongue in cheek talk about, I finally got to the bottom. Can I buy your product? Can I use your product? Can I take advantage of it, right? So that's the traditional sales funnel, and that's not going away, right? I want to be clear about that, okay? But there are so many more ways now to attract the attention of users in the product itself. And this is where we get to what we call now this product-led growth flywheel, where there's this idea that the product itself can advocate for expanding usage of the product, but also allow users to share the product with others. So it's not only about going deeper and being able to offer more capabilities for your current users, it also enables your current users to send out, hey, I love this product. I think you should join me in using it, right? So it allows for advocating and then activating more adoption. And then hopefully you get folks who adore your product. And then that starts this flywheel moving of now they advocate more, right? So this is a whole new way where the product itself, and it says rather than, but I want to say in addition to marketing and sales, it becomes the primary growth driver over time, right? So this is an amazing new view of things. We've been doing this for a number of years, but in the last couple of years, there's been more techniques that have made this capability even more powerful. And we even did a webinar on this earlier this year. So in the chat box, I'm going to send out a link right now. If you want to learn more about product-led growth, we have an entire webinar on it. The most recent example for me of product-led growth was an ad that I saw just the other night on TV, where if you go to the website for pizza, and a lot of people have been ordering in pizza these days, right? So you go to the Pizza Hut website, and at the top of the website, they now have an upsell, right? So this is an example of product-led growth where the product itself, which, you know, the website's part of that experience, is now upselling this triple stack, this treat box, right? Where you get a whole meal according to Pizza Hut. Now, I'm not going to talk about the healthiness of that, and we just talked about the importance of exercise, but this is an example of product-led growth where the upsell is a part of the experience. And I think it's a combination of multiple things in the whole product experience. I'm going to talk more about that, but I thought this was a brilliant example of the product is helping. Now, with product-led growth, again, why should we care? Denise was talking about the fact that, you know, with diversity, it's not just the fact that it's the right thing to do. There are profits as well. Same thing with product-led growth. $200 billion in difference in the value here of PLG indexed companies in their growth versus, look at the S&P 500, already better than that. But look at, you know, the SAS index, but look at the S&P 500, considerably better growth over the course of these months in March, or excuse me, in 2019. So an amazing difference when you engage product-led growth. It also reduces the cost of acquisition. It helps you grow more efficiently. It enables buyers, even B2B, to buy how they prefer. So a lot more, you know, we talk a lot about the consumerization of B2B because every B2B person ultimately is a user. And so you can apply these techniques, not just to B2C, but also to B2B. And I want to make that emphasis as well. All right, let's move on to the next one, seamless experiences. And I did talk about this one for 2020, but this is just becoming even more important in 2021. And I want to run through a quick example of comparing different kinds of experiences. And here I want to talk about a retail purchase. So, you know, the traditional experience of going through retail and buying something is that you take out your credit card, you get a printed receipt, and then to actually make sure that everything turned out the way you expected to on the monthly bill, you get this reconciliation of having your bill at the end of the month, right? Well, now with, like, for example, a wearable, you can hold your watch now up to these point of sale terminals and make a purchase just that easily. No more even reaching into your pocket for your phone, right? I mean, we were talking about just a couple of years ago about how great it was that I didn't have to get my wallet out, but you still had to get your phone out, right? But now your watch can, and I've been doing this, okay? This is a picture of my watch. I did cross out my number so nobody can steal my identity, but this is an example of being able to pay, and then both receipt and reconciliation happen immediately. On my watch, like 10 seconds later, I get a notification back from Chase that in fact, this was the dollar amount that was charged to my account. So it happens in 2 steps instead of 3, and it's instantaneous. This is what we're talking about. Can you think about creating more seamless experiences? The other example I want to talk about is Spotify. And I did talk about this the last time around, but I've changed up the examples. Now that you've got music playing on your smartphone, you walk from one end of the house to the other, and you can actually just immediately have it switch over to your smart speaker. The other thing now that I've started playing with is you can use your watch to control playback on either a smart speaker or even on your smart TV, right? Because I have good speakers on the TV. I actually enjoy doing that in a room. The thing that I find most impressive about Spotify is it anticipates you. So I go out to my car, and the next song on the playlist that I was listening to in the house is now playing in the car. So there are ways, and Spotify is a great example of creating the seamless experience where all the various digital touch points in your life work together. And that is what I think you want to strive for. It's very important to think about this as you're offering services, right? And this is digital, I get that. I'm going to talk about non-digital as we go into the next topic here. And I'll pause, see, Denise, if you got anything you want to add here.
Yeah, I mean, I look at, you know, these consumer examples, and I say again, where I aspire to get to on the B2B side. But I think
Hmm.
where we are seeing kind of seamless experiences more in the B2B space is really how do we connect kind of different tools or applications together for the end user, right? Again, going back to that jobs to be done theory, how do we look at what somebody is trying to do and kind of weave that for them so they don't have to think about, oh, I have to go do this task over here, and then I need to write this thing down, and then I need to go over here and do something else. And so for those of you maybe in my space, right, in that B2B space, you may say, well, I'll never get to this point of being able to play or interact maybe on my phone or my watch in quite the same way. But I think it is really just about how do I make it seamless for the user to accomplish that task. And I think that really can go very far, again, in making somebody truly love your product.
Absolutely. In fact, tying a couple of these concepts together, when I've taught this class before, we've talked about observing your customers. So going back to being customer centric, sometimes being able to do a day in the life of the customer and actually observe how they do things. In a B2B setting, one time we had a customer that we were just watching them use a form on our web app, and they got to a field they had to fill in, and then they went over to their desk and they did they picked up their physical calculator and had to do a calculation, and then they entered that number into the field. And I was like, see, interview would have never taught me that. But by doing day in the life, I realized, you know what? I should just put two fields in there for the two numbers that they had to pick up their calculator, do that calculation to enter the number that I was asking for. So then they don't have to do that, that whole experience of picking up the calculator and doing that math. Right? That's an example of you're making the experience more smooth and more seamless for them in a B2B setting. So
Yeah, so painful, but so invaluable to watch those research sessions.
absolutely. All right, so let's talk about digital transformation. And now digital transformation, even though digital is the first word of this, is bringing together some of the concepts we've already talked about, but it's not always just about a digital experience. So I'm going to have one example where it is digital and one example where it's not digital, right? So digital transformation is where you are bringing digital to your existing service, your existing product. And so a couple of examples of this. The first one is, let's talk about bank loans. And I went through this recently. So people, when I was going these slides, one of my other peers said, that's an old example, Roger. People don't have that anymore. I'm like, it's not though. Earlier this year, I refinanced my house, and I did have to go through this. I did get an email form, so that was good. But then I had to print it out, and I actually had to sign it, and then I had to scan it, and then I had to email it back. I was like, really? It's 2020. Why am I going even through this? Right? And yet this is happening. It is happening all the time. So this is an example where digital transformation has come some way. At least I didn't have to go to the loan officer's office, right? And go through all of that effort. Although later on, we actually did have a notary come to the house because you needed a wet signature and a notarized signature. So we still have a ways to go on this. But let's move forward to, we're seeing the ads for it now, being able to apply for a loan right on your phone. And at least the application steps are being streamlined. But there's more to come. So if you're in a service business, is there a way for you to at least reduce the number of steps that are physical or manual and automate more of those steps in a digital way? That's the first step. Can we then get all the way to a completely touchless, completely digital experience? And again, in COVID-19, becomes even more important to be able to enable that just for the survival of your business, right? All right, second example, circular saws. If any of you are handy like myself and you want to use power tools, that's as an example, we're like, wait, what? Okay, for all you in the audience who don't have a digital product already and you have things like circular saws as your products, there are ways to bring a digital experience to this, right? DeWalt has been doing work where they have added the ability to put tracking tags on tools, so you can pick up your phone and find on a big site where did the last guy who touched the circular saw leave it, so I can go find it and pick it up. But I'm taking this to the next level of, you could actually add a little bit of smarts to that saw so it notices when the blade is getting dull and actually sends you a notification. So if you're offering a consumer product or a physical product or an appliance, there are ways to bring a digital experience to this. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about digital transformation. It's crucial that you be thinking about these things. Now, as we've been going through the webinar, I want to encourage you to also ask questions. I've seen a couple come in, but keep those questions coming up because I've got one more topic and then we'll have time for questions. I don't know, Denise, if you want to add anything here before I move to the last topic.
No, I mean, I was just thinking about a conversation you and I had it preparing for this, where we were talking about the dryer, right? And the dryer actually being enabled to send you notifications, or the washing machine too. I said, but I don't find that useful unless I've got a robot that can move the clothes between one and the other. And you said, but hang on, my washer and dryer is really far away, right? And
Right.
so ultimately being able to look and see, is it done, without having to kind of make that journey to get there. So again, it really just is about, how do you make that digital experience better? How does that really improve the life of your user?
Right.
And I'm sure everybody now is going to start using that feature on their washer and dryer after this webinar.
Yeah, see, our washer and dryer are out in the garage across the courtyard, right? So yeah, having the notification that the dryer is done is really useful. So again, what's my pain point versus yours, right? You didn't have that pain point, but I do. So that's where we have to understand our customers better, right? All right, and then pivot power. Now we've been talking about pivots for years, right? So pivot is not something new to the landscape. So, but pivot this year has been, just a crazy necessity. And this is where I want to conduct our second poll. So let me launch this poll of how did you pivot this year? So I'm launching the poll. And like I was saying, 2020 has been a year where pivoting has become not just a nice to have, if you will, in terms of capabilities in your product management tool belt, but a necessity in order to be able to deal with what's been going on. So I want to kind of poll our audience and find out, okay, how did you pivot this year? Did you change a feature or benefit of your product? Did you change perhaps a delivery option? Did you add or change the way you provided services to your customers? Or did you even change the payment or financing options for your product? So this is something where I want to kind of check in with all of you and see, where have you been on this landscape? Or maybe the last choice, right? You haven't yet pivoted your product. And I want to leave the poll open for another second or two in order to get more people to participate. We're at 43% of participants, so I want to leave that open. I don't know, Denise, if you want to say anything about pivoting before
I
we
was going
move.
to say, we even pivoted our customer experience center, right? Typically customers would come in, we'd talk to them about all elements of the product. And so we did training to really, teach product managers how to better communicate virtually,
Right.
and shifted all that to the virtual world.
That makes sense, right? Yeah, you used to have an experience center where people would come in, and now that's just not practical, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let me close the poll and let's look at the results. All right, so 35% of folks have been there. They have changed their features or benefits this year. 11% changed their delivery options. 17% changed their service options. That's awesome. 8% change payment and financing. That's also pretty cool. Excellent. And 29%, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't click the little share button. I'll put that up so people can see it. And then 29% have not pivoted their product yet. So that could be that maybe you're in physical goods, or I don't know, or you haven't taken advantage of this, but I want to talk about this from a perspective from multiple dimensions of being able to pivot even when your product is not a digital product. So let's get into that. So we teach this whole product concept, and for those who are not familiar with it, product managers tend to stay focused on actual product, right? They worry about features and packaging and brand. That's where they spend a lot of their time. Not enough time, however, is spent thinking about the benefits of your product, which should then influence this, and then everything that surrounds your product in terms of, how do you comply with standards? What about installation? Do you provide different financing options? How about customer care? What about even delivery options, right? So all of these things taken together are the whole product, and we encourage in our courses for product managers to be thinking not just about features and benefit at the core, but everything. And this has been a year where a lot of these pivots have happened, not in the core products. I will give an example of that, but they have been happening in some of the augmented areas. So the first one is delivery, right? So Disney did the experiment of offering what was supposed to be an in-theater movie, Mulan, by offering it digital for a family price, right? My favorite innovation in COVID has been curbside cocktails. I've got to admit it. Okay, yeah, it has been that one, right? So I don't know, Denise, why I'm not able to hear you. I see you laughing.
Oh, I'm too excited. I had to put myself on mute. I love the curbside cocktails.
I I really do love that, right? But these are innovations that were essential for the businesses to try to be able to continue to serve their customers and also make money, right? Another area of innovation was in services. So think about wineries, breweries, right? They were suddenly not able to offer that experience of wine tasting. So they went to virtual wine tasting. And this has been an amazing innovation, I think, also in terms of being able to save your business by being able to still get out in front of customers and have that experience. And I actually participated in my first one of these just earlier this month, and it was a charity event as well. So there was another connection there where charities have seen a horrible fall off in donations this year, but we went to an event that was for human trafficking, but it was a virtual wine tasting experience. And so it served multiple benefits there. So I found that to be a really, really great experience. Then the last one, getting back to features and benefits, where most of you did do things, there's a website called Kedaddle. And Kedaddle was a website that was all about booking family and child-oriented experiences. Well, suddenly all of those experiences got canceled, right? And Kedaddle could have gone under if they did not pivot. And what they did is they pivoted to offering more than 1,500 resources for parents with kids stuck at home, right? They identified quickly, okay, we're not going to make money this way, but also our audience is hurting. How do we help them? So they then put up literally 1,500 different resources that are available now, and they are now making money off of advertising revenue, and they are making money off of commissions for purchases of kits, for example, like science kits was one of the things I saw on the website that I found appealing, right? You could buy a science kit and bring it home. So these are all examples of pivots. The first two were not in the core product, right? So as a product manager, you've got to be thinking about pivoting, right? Now, fine, Roger, but how do I go about doing that? Well, I give you some ideas here for some capability building, right? Of you need to be doing the things that Denise was talking about earlier, right? Become more customer centric, but you also need to see about changing the way you make decisions inside your organization. Can you become more rapid? Just because you get fast understanding customers, now you got to get the rest of the organization to be able to make decisions more effectively as well, right? And then in terms of product capabilities, leveraging agile methodology, instrumenting your digital products. But I'm also thinking about you non-digital folks, right? So here's the example of the most non-digital thing I purchased this year. Oh, it didn't animate right. Shoot. Oh, well. It was a pool spa vacuum, something that you use to just get the leaves out of the bottom of the pool. Well, they sent this card with this, right? Where, and I thought it was brilliantly done, and you can see it up here. If you're feeling good about the product, here's some digital ways to engage and share your love. If you're not feeling well, here is how you get a hold of us so that we can help make it better, right? So even for the most physical of products, you can create digital touch point opportunities. So I just want to emphasize that point for our non-digital product managers out there. All right, so let's kind of wrap up because I wanted to save time for questions. Here were the 8 trends that we talked about today. I'm not going to read them back to you. Hopefully you remember them. But Denise said it, I said it too, right? As product management leaders, we get to the point of we got to train people to think about so what, all right? How are you going to take this webinar and make it more effective? For product management trends, pick one that your team can use and try to start applying it to grow. For the innovation trends, can you step back and see about, well, are there some unmet needs? Are there some weaknesses in my user journey? Are there new needs that have come up that we're not meeting where I could take advantage of one of these technology or innovation trends? Or is there an opportunity for me to differentiate myself from my competition by taking advantage of one of these trends? So I hope that you can apply this lens to all the stuff we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes and put it to use, right? That's what we're always excited about. And in fact, we're now going to open a poll to measure how effective you thought this was. And we're going to start by talking with some of you about the questions that you had. So one of the questions that we had, Denise, was if you don't have a customer-centric approach today, or you want to learn some new tools to improve customer understanding, where should I start?
Well, so I'd go back to maybe that slide, that I presented, watch this webinar again, right, and look at those different listening channels. I'd start opening those listening channels up. I'm sure, Roger, you probably got some great recommended reading, but I think there's also reading up on jobs to be done, reading up on kind of the Google Viz or the design sprint approach that you see out of Google Ventures. Those are really great kind of methodologies for really deeply understanding your customer, and can give you some pretty prescribed toolkits on how to do that effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Good ideas. And yes, we have a lot of resources on our website as well. You go to our blog post and you look up either market research or voice of the customer, and we've got blogs that will help you start down that journey as well. Very good. Another question was, okay, I'm just a member of a product management team. I'm not yet a leader, and that was nearly half of our audience today. How do I take advantage of some of these trends if I'm not the leader of the organization? I'll let you think about that for a second, Denise. But one of the things that I always find helpful is use some of the evidence, if you will, from this slide deck, do a little bit of Googling, and build a little mini case for, hey, boss, I would really love for us to try this, and look, here are some of the benefits it might be able to bring, right? And I think that's a valuable way to start, but I'll let you also answer the question as well.
No, I mean, I would echo exactly what you're saying. First of all, I think every product manager is a leader. You're leading a team. And so I do think you have the opportunity to experiment in some ways within your team. I think the other really great thing is exactly what you said. Take it to your leader, right? Say, this is a really great thing for us to try, because all great ideas come from everywhere within the organization. But you really got to package it up, as you said, kind of put it together. What are the benefits? Why would we do this? What are we going to get out of it? And how are we going to measure that?
Yeah, definitely. Good. Another question was, what's the best approach? It's kind of similar, but more specific. What's the best approach as a product manager to convince Stonehead, old time CEO, and I won't mention your name or your company, to divert company direction to more DX?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I think, again, proving the value, right? And
Yeah.
let's be a little more specific. So on this case, find a company that's in your market or targeting the same set of customers that you are targeting. Find a company that's doing this. And if you can you plot their revenue growth versus your revenue growth the last year? Can you plot, or do you have specific examples? Go talk to sales. Go talk to sales and ask them, hey, do you have some examples where we had a loss, and who do we lose to? And get the names of 3 or 4 of those companies, look at those companies and see whether or not they're doing something digital that they've gone through the digital transformation. They're offering more of these features and benefits. And then you should be able to say, look, our sales team we're losing people to this company, and this is what they're doing. That's, I think, a very compelling argument, right, for why we need to start picking this up and going through digital transformation. So great question.
Yeah,
Lisa, you want
I might add to that also customer satisfaction, right? Going back to, are you sending out a customer satisfaction survey, or are you getting an NPS score? Because that is a great way to also, again, bring that leader evidence to say, listen, our customers aren't satisfied with our product today, and here's what they want and need to move the needle for them.
Right. No, I think it's a great point. Definitely. So yeah, tying back in, you've got to be able to measure this to get that exhaust going, right?
Yep.
All right, a question for Denise. As a senior product leader, what is your ideal time split between, and here's 4 choices, market customer activities, team people activities, strategic planning, and other product management activities? What's your how do you try to split up your time that way? And maybe think about it on a weekly or monthly basis, because that's how I do it, not daily.
Yeah, I definitely don't do it on a daily basis, but I like to get out there, and it's not always true every week to week, but I like to be talking to my customers 20% of my time, right? Because that really helps me keep a great pulse on what their needs are. And that may be customers, it may be prospects. I'm kind of lumping that into a broad category there. But then on strategic activities, that is something that demands a lot of my time. I need to be spending, again, maybe it's about 20% if I think about it, thinking about pricing and packaging, looking at the analysis of how we're doing in particular markets, and then trying to see where do we need to adjust, right? Where do I need to lean in with the sales team, lean in with the marketing team, work on, some value messaging, to your point about not enough people think about value, so that we can be more successful and we can see those long-term gains. I will say I do spend a lot of time on my team. I think that's a big part of my job. My job is to hire great people, give them the context, and pull back the cord and let them go, right? That is That's really important to me. And so that is a big portion of my time. And then I'd say the rest is probably in the miscellaneous bucket. Changes from week to week, looks a little different. But I think those first three things are really, really valuable. And as a leader, it is where I want to be spending a lot of my time.
Right. No, I completely agree. Right. I've managed teams for 17 years, and I agree that that focus on your team and enabling their success is important, but don't lose touch with your customers. So yeah, I think the numbers are quite precisely right, but that split you definitely need. Really appreciate that. Well, folks, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of, you get a break for the holiday season. Maybe a little bit less Zoom, a little bit less GoToWebinar in the next 2 weeks. Breathe it in, spend some time. And it's important to really get a break right now, because I know we've all been suffering from Zoom fatigue and so forth. Denise, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated your insights. And I really hope that everybody here is able to take something from either PM trends or the technology trends that I offered and be able to go make great products that help build products that matter. So thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of 2020. And here's to a 2021 that's got to be better than 2020.
Thanks, Roger, for having me. And yes, hope everybody got something useful out of this today. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. All right. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.